Everyone, welcome to another video tutorial of GGXLog. In today's video, we are going to discuss the organization of the interface of GGXLog. So if you look at the interface, this is the interface that appears when you launch GGXLog. And on the top left-hand corner, you have the main menu. On the bottom left-hand corner, you actually have the task being performed by the user or the program. On the top right-hand corner, you have the interface language, which can be changed. And on the bottom right-hand corner, you actually have the time elapsed when a session is being recorded. So if you look at the main menu, you see that only the project and the help menu are enabled, and in the help menu you actually have the user guide, which will launch as a PDF that you can navigate through, and an about screen that will give you more information about this particular application. And on the project menu you can have new, which will actually launch a new project. That's basically a new writing session that you want to record, and we will go into detail on what these different settings are in a different video. And then you have open recent, export files, preferences, and of course to quit the application. Now you would see that the view menu is disabled. The view menu will, and as well as the export files menu. These will enable only once you open an existing session that has been recorded. So you're going to open an existing project that has already been recorded. So let us go and explore one of them. And as soon as you open, you will see that the view menu is enabled, and so is the export file menu. And you've come into the default window, which is the session replay window, where you can actually see the time elapsed in a particular recording session when you play it, and also the total duration of this particular session. So you can, like a typical player, you can play, you can fast forward, you can slow it down, you can go to the start, or you can go to the end. And if you want to close this file that you have already opened, the session file, you have to close it from this close button. Now if we go to the view menu, you can see that we have different presentations or different views of this session, and the session replay is what's already open, and we have graph representations that will show you a graph representation of this particular session, and you cannot process it until you set the graph settings, which will go into detail later onwards. But you will see once you set these settings, you enable your process, and it will actually draw the graph for you. And of course the export button will export this into a particular format, and in this case it will open it in your web browser if you export this file. You can also view graph statistics. Since the graph settings have already been set, they use common settings between the session graph and the graph statistics, and since they've already been set, the process button is enabled. So you can press process and you will get the graph statistics or different data visualizations of this session. You can also go into a progressive graph, where you can see how the graph evolved through the writing session, and again it uses the same settings. And if you process, you'll start off with node 0, and then you can actually see how the graph evolved through the writing session and the corresponding text at a given moment in the writing process. We'll also have different notations, and we have three basic notations, and one is linear text. And here too you have to set the settings for this, and when you save it you can see that this is a linear notation of the writing session, and you also see the final text that was developed through this process. And you have two different formats in this linear text notation. The next notation we have is of course S notation, and here too you have to set your settings, which we'll go into detail in a later tutorial. And you will see you have all the edits, which are typically inserts and deletes that have taken place during the graph, during the writing session. And here you have the S notation of this particular writing session. So you can progress through this to see how each event or each edit changed the particular text at a given time. So you will see that when you progress through this. And of course you can go to the end or the beginning of the text as well. So you can go forward and backward using these arrows. We provide some analysis as well, and you can see that we have again settings, and you can see what you want to view, what type of statistics you want to view, whether you want an event analysis, or whether you want the final text analyzed, or whether you want a time or a pause analysis or a gene analysis. So if you save these settings, you will see that you get statistics for these different scenarios. We also have a burst and efficiency analysis, and here too we have to give the settings because the burst and efficiency analysis changes according to these settings. So you see a graph which shows you inserts and appends, how a burst has been, how the length of such a burst, and also different efficiency values for those bursts, and of course a 10% trimmed mean for this burst is showed here. And then also you have an event list that has taken place during this writing session. We have a microanalysis where you can do a microanalysis of the text, and here you have the codings for these different analyses, and you can select what you're looking for. So if you select all, you are going to get a micro level analysis of this particular text. So it generally corresponds to at least 2 or 3 key presses in the writing session. We also have an editing distance that shows different types of edits that you might want to select or consider, and you can see an edit distance, and of course we also have the edit time as a distance in this particular scenario. And finally you have the session log that basically shows you what the session log looks like. And if you want to see the user guide will typically launch like this, and you can go to the user guide, and of course you can navigate to different sections of this particular user guide. And the about window will give you information including the license, disclaimer notice, copyright information, version and release dates, and of course contact information for this particular software. So that's the tutorial, and I hope to see you again in another video tutorial of GGXLog.